You do have something very similar to that in at least the initial stages of our democracy. We had mostly people that were graduating from specific universities. Harvard, Yale are two of the most important ones. William and Mary, of course, from the South. So Madison. Madison? What are the presidents? We've got Washington, Adams. Jefferson was number 3. Adams went to Harvard. Washington and Jefferson went to William and Mary. Right? Madison was 4th. Madison was 4th.
Monroe, yeah.
Madison's farm. Okay, Monroe was the one whose plantation was right across the street from Jefferson's. But Madison was from the islands, right? He was born, am I remembering that correctly? No, that's Hamilton. And he was never president. So, okay, let's not go that way. But that's fun, trying to figure out where they came from. But the real clear one is how many presidents have had their sons also become president?
2.
Well, so John Adams and his son Samuel Adams became president. Right?
And there was Bush and
Bush and Bush. Roosevelt and Theodore Roosevelt were actually relatives,
weren't they cousins?
something like that. But so that's interesting. But yes, it seems like it's been kept in a traditional class of individuals that have gone to a particular training school to become that. England is even more that way, because if you haven't gone to Eton and then to either Cambridge or Oxford, you don't get to be prime minister, basically. One of the fun quiz questions I have is the debate between Mary Beard and Boris Johnson. And Boris is one of the clique of people who not only became prime minister after the debate that I have posted as the video, but also as Cameron's classmate and others. So yes, there's like a social class of individuals that basically, up until Starmer, they all came from the same school, etc. So that's interesting. But it's not an heir, generally speaking. But we also have an issue over what rights are and whether or not they're God-given, because the Declaration argues that we have unalienable rights. And the question, of course, is, well, what are those? Did God give you those rights? And so now I can't remember what the what's the quiz question for today? Aha, so this is interesting. So we've only got 5 minutes, but here's my quiz question for today. What do you think of the idea that we are all Klein bottles? It's just an interesting concept. But what rights do we have? This is actually a test question. So if you go to test which test is due when? We're working on test 2 now, right? So one of the questions on test 2 is Well, I'll just go through the list here real quick. Describe St. Anselm's argument for the existence of God. Remember, you pick 3 of these questions. You can pick more if you like, but don't skimp on the 300 words for each, right? So that's the ontological argument. Is it convincing or not, and why? The second one I have is St. Thomas Aquinas. How was he able to merge Aristotelian concepts with church dogma? Yes, question.
Do we have anything for midterms, or is this essentially?
I don't have a separate midterm and a separate final. I have 3 tests and the term paper and the quizzes. So relax. This is supposed to be fun. Funnest class you'll ever have. Hopefully, though, it's not too nauseating, with the roller coaster thing, as we do, right? I'm so used to it, I don't, it's like the Oculus. I can put that on and do all sorts of things, and I never feel nauseous. My wife and my daughters, I don't get it, what happens. But, yes.
When is this due for the exam due?
I have to double check here. Oh, didn't I do that? Yes, here we go. So the second exam is due March 6th. Well, it's actually the Saturday of the week of March 6th. Okay? Is that good?
Yeah.
Same as last time. Email me whenever you like. If I email you back and say, you just gave me 889 words. I need 11 more words. Actually, I've given people A's for 889 words. I'm such a softie. I had a colonel in the Army personally, counseling me and saying, you're very, very smart, but you're not really a very good leader. And what he meant was, I don't make people do things they don't want to do. I try to convince them that they want to do it. Which is not the military way, actually. But that's okay. I survived all of that. So March 6th, but actually that's Saturday. And of course, if you're late, I still would rather just give you an A if you send it to me anytime, as long as it's before the end of the course, because once they put the grades in, they're locked. So, and I am honest, so if you only have given me test 1 and 2 in the term paper, you get a B, basically. See how that works, right? Okay, thanks for the question. So, what kinds of things do you know for sure, and how do you know this? And support your argument with a modern philosopher. Modern, I mean by the modern period, so Descartes, Hobbes, Spinoza, Locke, Berkeley, Hume. And after that, it's like not really the modern period. It's kind of like the classical music period. It's actually Mozart and early Beethoven. And after that, it's the Romantic period. So it's not classical. But lots of people refer to classical music as, anytime you've got more than 3 people playing music at the same time, I guess. I don't know. And sometimes you can even have an instant classic, which is like, no, that's illegal. It has to be ancient for it to be a classic. You can't have instant classic. It just doesn't work. Okay. What do you think should be our inalienable rights? And what reasons do you have for thinking so? Support your views with the work of a social contract philosopher. So far we've got Hobbes, we've got Locke. I haven't really talked about Rousseau because I hate him, but for good reasons. You would hate him too if you knew the reasons I hated him for. Locking children in closets when they're infants and waiting until they're 4 years old to take them out to find out what language they speak. And he was surprised because he thought they would speak French.
How many did he experiment on?
I think just one. But you know, that was a failure. You probably should. Yeah, he's the person that, like, he had children by lots of women, but he didn't care for them. Never married the women, never cared for the kids. His theory of child rearing is, as soon as they're big enough to walk, kick them out of the house and see if they survive. Those that survive and come back and want to ask you questions, and you answer their questions. What an asshole. And all of his books, you know, he was an opera composer, and he wasn't doing that well. He was doing okay. But he writes to his friend Voltaire and says, how do I become famous? And Voltaire writes back and says, write books that say just the opposite of what everybody believes. And that's exactly what he does. He writes, you know, what's the best kind of education? No education. What's the best kind of government? No government. And we're trying that ourselves right now, if you've noticed. And as you can see by the protests all over the place, that doesn't work really. And the French experienced that when they took Rousseau's philosophy and installed it as their government in 1789, and the next 2 years were referred to as the Terror. Robespierre using the guillotine, chopping off of everybody's head until they chopped his head off with it, which is, you know, that's how that kind of government works, right? So Rousseau writes the kind of crap he does because of the advice of Voltaire. It works. He becomes famous for saying absolutely the opposite of what everybody knows to be true. And of course it doesn't work. Man is completely virtuous and innocent in the state of nature. It's only once we form a government that you end up becoming corrupt. So you've got people that actually believe that and write books about, you know, the last of the Mohicans, you know, or, you know, the natural man, etc. You know, it's absolutely wonderful, etc. You know, I gotta shut up, don't I? I have too much fun. Thank you for coming to class and making my life as enjoyable as it is. Because I love this stuff and I love sharing it, and I hope some of you are going to become the next generation of philosophers. Because we desperately need philosophers, and we need people that know our history, because it turns out that knowing history helps you prevent making the same mistakes over and over again if people listen to you, which unfortunately they don't. They don't.
It's interesting whenever you mention William and Mary, because I'm from Virginia. So like all of my like old teachers, a lot of them either went to ODU, which is the sweater I'm wearing right now, or William and Mary. So it's interesting hearing that. I haven't heard like that name.
I was really an important. I mean, that was actually the capital of Virginia at the time, I believe.
I've heard this from like so many teachers, but like basic U.S. history class, like Virginia history is like the book, like it's just repeating all of it. So I have so much like early U.S. history ingrained in my head because I've heard it every year.
Yeah, I loved visiting Williamsburg and doing the tour and stuff, and visiting some of the shops and eating with no utensils.
Yeah, my dad went to William and Mary, so I have like college sweatshirts, and so I lived in like the Hampton area, so we'd always go to Williamsburg on the weekend to get like, they have a really good candy store up there. It's these really good apples. That's one thing I miss a lot from home. Those apples. What is that? What's that called?
It's called a With Candy store in Williamsburg.
Okay.
We sell these caramel apples, and they're so good. My cousin works there. I think he still works there. I don't know. But yeah.
It's really a good visit.
I went back home for the first time in like 5 years this past winter, which was a lot of fun. I just stayed up more on the south side than the Norfolk area, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
When I visited, it was. I could find out the date because it was a UAA tour. We took 4 students. who were in the 49th State Fellows program, and my wife and I were we were the guide, even though we had never been there ourselves before. But I was the one that drove the van, took them to the different places. It was a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. It's like so interesting how much history is like baked into the area, like without like just a subconscious, like it's in the back of your head.
And that's when we visited the Monticello, and then
I've never been there. Like I don't know. Like I never got a chance to go there because it was so touristy. It was just like I don't see it.
Yeah, I get that. Like, especially if you're from there, it's like, but.
Because it's up near DC, and I've been to DC like a million times. Like my dad would, like he always had work trips up there, so we were up there at least once a month.
well, we also spent time in Stanton, and we went to 3 plays at the theater, the Shakespeare Theater, and we visited Woodrow Wilson's birthplace, and I guess that was it while we were there. But we also had some lectures at lunch with one of the University of Virginia professors. So that was great. Thanks for mentioning that you're from there and the connection.
It was nice, like hearing my homesick.
Well, I just wanted to apologize for being late today. It's been a chaotic week. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
but
I
didn't wanna-
apologize
couldn't
for being
stop.
early.
This is my favorite class,
Oh,
so I was like, I gotta get there.
thanks.
But, well, thank you. See you later.
Alrighty.
Oh, is that due by Saturday at midnight?
Yeah,
11:59? Okay, cool. All right, thank you.